Well, Zozo's predecessor is slamming the current mayor and that little stunt, saying on X, quote, "The video was irresponsible and the mayor should do the right thing and apologize." The consequences from Mamdani's war on the rich keep mushrooming. Charlie Gasparino reporting tonight that private equity giant Apollo is aiming to open a second headquarters outside of the Big Apple in, maybe Florida or Texas.
Both good choices. For more, let's bring in Strategas Securities Chairman and CEO Jason Trennert. Jason, nice to see you tonight. Okay, so you've got a couple parts of this deal. One is the fact that Ken Griffin is saying, if this is an environment that doesn't want business, then we'll take our business elsewhere. But, and this is something Dagan mentioned, he's making a deeper point, I think, as well, which is what Mamdani's doing by calling out Griffin by location and name is he's creating a dangerous environment for capitalists in New York City. What do you make of all this?
Well, I think it is creating a dangerous environment for businessmen in this city. It's also creating a dangerous environment for the average taxpayer in New York that wants a job that's not in government, that doesn't center around the state, that centers around private enterprise. I think that stunt, it sounds cliche, but it's un-American to call out someone that is going to provide thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs in New York City, either directly or through all of the businesses that will grow up around its headquarters. So for the life of me, I don't understand it. I've lived in this town for 35 years. I raised a family here. I started a business here 20 years ago. And I don't get the sense that things are a lot better. It's not like the streets are paved with gold here or that we don't have some security issues or crime issues. There is a sufficient tax base to do the things that we need to do if we weren't just lighting the money on fire with illegal immigrants or other forms of social welfare that frankly do more harm than good.
And the budget here in New York City is not in good shape. Ken Griffin's message was simply take your money and your jobs and your business where they're welcome. And business people are not welcome in New York City, and that mayor has made it clear. Let's branch it out. Stock market at all-time highs today. S&P, NASDAQ, even the Russell small cap Russell hit a new all-time high. The economy is solid. Manufacturing is doing well, despite the skirmish with Iran. Glass half empty. And I'll give the glass half full to Brian. What's your biggest worry here, if anything?
Well, there's two worries that I have. The biggest one, though, is more immediate, which is the fact that oil prices stay sticky, and that impacts consumer spending. But I'm getting over that largely because of the tax refunds from the One Big Beautiful Bill, and the fact that AI is it's not stopping. This is the real thing. It's real technology. The business use case for it has not been, I think, completely established, but there's no question that CapEx spending on this technology will continue and will continue very, very quickly. The other issue I would just say that I'm keeping a real eye on are long-term interest rates. They've been very well behaved, but I will say over the last 3 or 4 years, once you get to 450 on the 10-year Treasury yield, you tend to have a little indigestion in the stock market. Right now, we're comfortably below that, but the deficit and the debt are real, and I do think there are some concerns about whether other central banks around the world may diversify into hard assets harder than the U.S. dollar, in response to all of the things that have gone on, not just Iran, but also our decision to freeze the foreign reserves of Russia several years ago in response to Ukraine. There are some other issues there underlying the dollar, I think, that are probably worth discussing. But bottom lining it's oil and interest rates.
All right, now let me get to a little bit of glass half full, because I like that area. I'm fascinated, Jason, by kind of the reworking of geopolitics in the globe around energy through the Iran issue, right? So Venezuela, we talked today in the show about Norway. They're opening up 3 gas fields that they shut down decades ago, right? UAE says we're out of OPEC, we're doing it our own way. I look at all of that and I think that's a world more conducive to growth with the right people in control of the right resources. Jason, do you see it that way?
I do, and I think that it also this episode I think shows some of the dangers of deglobalization, because there are real free rider problems, especially if you're the United States and is footing the bill for security for a lot of parts of the world, and is also not taking full advantage of its energy resources as a result. I think this is a very positive development for the United States, because, as Ms. Coates said, we are the world's gas station. That's not going to change after this episode with Iran. And I'd also say that there aren't, when it comes to AI, there's no other alternative other than the United States. The United States is the only place where you can get this level of entrepreneurship and innovation. And so, and then some of our other enemies, if you will, if you look at what's happening in Russia, Putin is not in particularly great shape politically there, from my understanding. And, you know, there could be a situation in which this, again, becomes the American century, despite all of the talk about it not being that. And I think that it would be a direct result of moving away from globalization.
Before we go, Ken Griffin couldn't remember the name of the man who invented hydraulic fracturing. And so what was done in the last century is bearing fruit in this century. I looked it up. I didn't know. It's multiple people. But it was, to name 3 of them, Floyd Ferris of Standalone Oil and Gas, J.B. Clark, and the kind of modern shale fracturing is George P. Mitchell in the Barnett Shale.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say that out loud, because America is one heck of a great place. Yes. Jason Trennert, made better with you in it. Jason Trennert, thank you, sir.
Well, very, very kind. Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you.